Being here, I want to get right to Belinda because Albert, her time is limited, and so can we just? I even want to get past the "It's the Planet Stupid" open and go right to her. Is that okay with you, Albert? Do I have your blessing to do that?
You have my blessing. Here she is.
Okay. She joins us on Thursdays, and I sadly we have limited time with her. I hope we have her in with us cleanly. But she is a great eco journalist with good news today about the environment as well, or at least about an effort to save parts of the environment. Warm welcome for Belinda Waymouth, everyone, please.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm so sorry that we are getting to you. Anyway, I want to get right into it. We're well.
Yeah.
You do have good news. It's about a collaboration. It's about saving, and I think increasingly saving parts of the planet, and maybe a way that many parts of the planet will need to be saved. So please, you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really fantastic collaboration that's happening between conservation groups and ranchers. And these two have not always been the best of friends. But the fact is, prairie grasslands are super important. They're incredible carbon sinks. Having that healthy soil, that sequesters a lot of carbon. And also, if you have healthy soils, they have more water in them, they can absorb more water. And as we're seeing these crazy deluges hit around the world, we need healthy soil. So what farmers and the other thing is in the US, we only have half the prairie grasslands that we had before we started settling the grasslands. So half of them are gone, and we're still losing them at a breakneck speed, 1 million acres a year, so the size of Rhode Island. So they're these critical ecosystems, one of the most endangered and least protected habitats in the world. So a really cool thing happened last year. The US government launched $1 billion program that is to fund conservation of land and waters. So that will help the grasslands. And then in the US Senate was introduced the North American Grasslands Conservation Act. And this very act supports things like these conservation easements that are happening, these agreements between conservation groups and farmers. So what happens is, ranchers sell the development rights, or they're backed by conservation groups, to buy land on the condition they don't develop the land. And what development means is that you till it, so you put crops in, or you develop it for other things. And not developing it means you only use it to graze livestock. You can use it for hunting and for forestry. And if you do carefully managed grazing, and that is mimicking what wild ungulates, herbivores like your bison, your wildebeest, say on the African continent, before there were fences, they are migratory, and when they graze in tight groups. Their hooves aerate the soil. All their pee and poop is of fantastic nutrients that encourage more grass growth. They never ate the grass all the way down to bare earth. They would move on to graze somewhere else. That grass would regrow and sequester more carbon. And so now you've got ranchers who have this injection of cash from these conservation groups, environmental groups, governmental groups, and they're working in partnership. And they're saving prairie lands, because they're not allowed. The deal is no development into perpetuity. Cool, right?
Right. No, very cool. And I guess what I'm getting from you as well is that this is a coalition. So it's not just the one batch of money. It's the one batch of money meets the other batches of money so that they can acquire more of this land and return it to the way it was naturally and naturally used by the wild livestock that was occupying that land. That's essentially
yeah. I mean, I've read stuff that says that when the Europeans first got here, the grass was so tall on the prairies that you could be sitting on your horse and you could tie the grass above the where the pommel of your saddle was. I mean, that's how tall it was. So it's a pretty unbelievable thing. And I think that everything now is going to be, a team effort. It's going to be about coalitions, different
Yes.
groups that, maybe have different ways of going about things, but have the same goal. Like, we want to preserve these, these prairie grasslands. I mean, one of the things I want to point out to everyone, and I, only have a couple of minutes, is that in 1990, there were only 500,000 of acres of private land was protected by one of these conservation easements, and now there are more than 30 million acres protected that way. So that's a 60-fold increase in these conservation easements in 32 years. That's good news, people.
It really is great news. That is such good news. I love that you have some good news. And in our last minute with you, I mean, I know you have to jump. The livestock to which you referred, some of the, and of course, we consume a tremendous amount of meat worldwide, and livestock and cows, there's a methane production that is a real problem for greenhouse gas emission. Bill Gates is involved in an effort to try to essentially build a feed program. I know about this only through you. You had pushed along a piece to me. I wonder if you could tell everybody about this effort. I'm chuckling because it's both funny, but it's really clever and smart and maybe effective.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Like, when we talk about these coalitions, it has to be this major group effort. We've got to come at it, with everything. And so, we have to have, sort of straightforward, grazing animals as we used to, old school, and then incredible technology. So Bill Gates has, he's funding this group. They're out of Australia. They're called Rumen 8, and the 8 is the numeral 8. And they're making this seaweed-based cattle feed that lowers the methane burps. Everyone thinks it's cow farts, but it's actually their burps that are the really, the amount of methane that they're putting into the atmosphere is crazy. They're about to start taxing them, and cows in New Zealand, farmers are going to have to pay a tax on every burp one of their cows makes, because in New Zealand, they are contributing half the greenhouse gases there. And so this feed that Bill Gates has put $12 million into, and also Jeff Bezos is involved, is okay. Like, we're going to have cattle. We're not going, but let's have cattle that aren't doing, as much damage. So one thing is, give them this, seaweed-based food. I hope they like it. Seaweed is just, one of the things in it. But we need these kind of breakthroughs. The tax in New Zealand, what will happen there is, if you tax burps, farmers will, have to have less cattle. And of course, they don't like that idea. But if the seaweed works, well, then they can start feeding, their cows this seaweed-based cattle feed, and less burps, less taxes.
Yes, I see. That's the ultimate incentive for them to perhaps get with the program. I love that, Kim. I love that Belinda goes, I hope they like it. Like the farmers and anybody eating meat gives a damn whether the cattle like the actual feed that they're being given. But they have to eat it in order to,
This research on the seaweed was going on with the Scripps Institute in San Diego, but also they're working with Strauss Dairy Farm here in Sonoma County, Marin County, on our coast here, and they're testing it out. And yes, the cows are eating it. It makes a huge difference in their amount of methane that they release from their burps, because I didn't know this, but burps are apparently, they burp more than they toot. So burps are the bigger problem.
Yes,
it's making a big difference. Yeah.
And Karen Cooper says,
it will reduce the methane that they're emitting by 90%.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
That's huge. That's huge. So,
the cattle do like the seaweed, says Karen Cooper. It's a relatively small component of the feed. A California farmer started using it quite a while ago. Yeah, that's kind of what you were saying, Kim, too.
Right.
That's Strauss. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Wow.
Yeah, so I think all this stuff is really great, because when you look at the methane that is going into the atmosphere, the biggest livestock agricultural nations in the world. I mean, if you put the top 15 together, their emissions are bigger than, Russia, Canada, Australia, because of the animals. Yes, and the burps, Kim, there. Yeah, the burps. Not the other end, front end.
Not the other end, yeah.
People.
Yeah,
But now
no,
the
right.
problem is, okay, how do we're going to have to harvest seaweed. How do we get it? Or do we grow it like in certain parts of the ocean? And so now there's companies being formed that are setting up areas where they can grow the seaweed to harvest specifically for food for the cattle. So it's kind of a whole new industry being created.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing is, they want us to eat more seaweed. You know, I mean, seaweed is, and then it's another thing. You know, it's a crop as opposed to an animal. It sequesters, CO2 every time it's, you're growing a new crop. So I think, it is going to be this collaborative, incredible kind of patchwork of solutions that all come together. And hopefully, as soon as possible. And
Yeah.
we'll be on a better footing, and we're really heading towards that. I'm always bleating on about the renewable energy and all these things, but all this stuff is moving in the right direction. So we just have to, I tweeted a thing the other day because we get so much misinformation still from the dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs I'm referring to are the fossil fuel industry, corporate leaders who keep on telling us that, we can only survive if we use fossil fuels. The media picks it up, our politicians parrot it, and it's just not true. And we need to really get away from that narrative. And and that's going to have to be my final note. I've got to bounce. I love you guys. I've got to go.
All right. Thank you, Belinda Waymouth. She's here on Thursdays at The Planet Stupid. Belinda, everybody. Thank you, Belinda Waymouth. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye. My pleasure.
Bye.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.